Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
G'day everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Smart Property Investment Show, the last episode of the year, 31st of December. The champagne is chilling on my deck at home, getting prepared for New Year's Eve. Still a couple of hours away, but I thought we'd come into the studio and record the last episode of the year. And to help me out today, I've asked some of my colleagues into the studio, some of my journalist colleagues. Sasha Karen, you might know him. You probably see his byline all the time on Smart Property Investment. He's one of our journalists. Sasha, how are you going?
Well, thanks, Phil. And yourself?
I'm not too bad at all. And James Mitchell, a familiar voice. Welcome back. It's been a while. Editor of Wealth here at Momentum Media. James, how are you going?
Yeah, very, very well, thanks, Phil, and Happy New Year in advance.
What do you got on tonight? What's happening?
Very, very little. I've got a young child, so I'll be going to sleep probably before midnight.
Really?
Which is, that's how I roll these days.
So good year for you then?
Yeah, very good year. Very good year.
Very good year. How about you, Sasha? You got much on tonight, mate?
Probably just another quiet one.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll stay up to midnight, see the fireworks, see the pretty lights, but...
Past my bedtime.
Of it. Partial bedtime. Well, I thought it would be poignant for us to shape our conversation today, James, around market predictions. Mm-hmm. So being the last day of the year, everyone's thinking about what's going to happen in 2019. I think history often dictates the future, and in property as well as many, many other things. So today, to help us steer this conversation through, thinking out to 2019 and what might happen, if you've been tuning into the Smart Property Investment Show recently, been a lot of talk about what's going on with the market in the latter part of 2018, the last 6 months or so. There's been some seismic shifts, particularly to the Sydney and the Melbourne market, and we've done it to death, I feel. But I thought we'd go back and look at the top 3 Smart Property Investment episodes for 2018, and I'm going to run through them. We had number 1. So this is around market predictions. So I'll sort of frame the top episodes around market predictions. The number 1 podcast we had around this particular theme was how to pick the next up-and-coming suburb.
That's a good one.
That went out on the 15th of the 1st, 18. The second most popular podcast was how is each property market really performing, which went out on the 12th of the 8th, 18. And then the third one around market predictions was one of the portfolio updates that we do regularly, where I have a chat about the Smart Property Investment portfolio and how we're performing, which is where to go from here for Sydney investors, which went out on the 31st of the 5th, 18. So a bit of a spread, stacked in more towards the front end of the year. And obviously, I think popularity is about downloads. So the longer that they're out there in cyberland, the more sort of listens they get. And just to give our listeners some context, when I look at the stats from downloads every single month, half of the listens to the Smart Property Investment Show is stuff which was done previously rather than the fresh stuff that went up that month. So it goes to show that there's a good balance in people either find the podcast and go backwards and explore, or they check back into points in time when we covered something off. So that was around market predictions. As you know, James, market predictions, everyone loves market predictions.
They do.
Your role now used to be formerly heading up our mortgages part of the business, and you moved sort of in the middle of the year into shifting into wealth. So your headspace now is just not mortgages, it's all the other financial products. So what's the sort of spread of the sort of topics that you look at these days?
Well, a big thing which has been on our agenda has been the Royal Commission, which obviously impacts all financial services players, particularly the wealth space. And I guess, it's interesting, the big banks in Australia, they've lately offered, they offer so many different products, from superannuation to deposits to home loans to credit cards and everything like that, so that a number of our titles, the advisor for mortgage brokers, for example, IFA, which is for independent financial advisors, which is one of the titles that I cover, as well as Investor Daily, all key into what the major banks are doing to various degrees, just because they're such large institutions. And I think one of the big stories to come out from the final months of 2018 has been the tightening of credit and what that'll look like going forward. And I know that's been something when economists put out their predictions for the year ahead in terms of where property's going. Shane Oliver, for example, from A&P Capital, he thinks that one thing to watch will be the Royal Commission's final report in February and what the major banks in particular, but generally all lenders do in terms of the availability of credit, because there's a lot of cross currents in play at the moment. And I think that could have some bearing on where property prices might go. Obviously, if people can't borrow, it might have a bit of an impact on demand.
How much does property predictions sentiment, attitudes, behaviours of investors sort of flowed out. Obviously, it's very mortgage-centric in many ways because property is intrinsically linked with your ability to secure finance. But from a wealth perspective, so in your discussions with financial advisors and funds managers and that particular ecosystem, how much of this agitative noise around property markets and real estate flowing into other parts of wealth, is there a connectivity between the two?
There is, because it's such a huge part of the economy. And I guess the fundamental thing about housing is that it's such a large asset class that, and because it's also fundamentally a shelter, a basic necessity, whether you're renting or owning, that whatever happens with prices around property impacts the way households spend. Therefore, that predicts the direction of the economy. So, and that's something which I think the RBA, it was OECD recently warned about, was that if property market continues to cool or we have a bit of a harder landing, that has repercussions for the broader economy. Let's say your house goes down in value a bit, or things aren't looking as great. You tend to tighten your belt. You tend to not spend as much on discretionary stuff as well. So I think that there's a strong tie between macroeconomics and property markets. I mean, and that's a global thing. Yeah.
So what about you, Sasha? As a journo and smart property investment, you must trade off market prediction stuff every single day. Is this bread and butter stuff, predicting what's going to happen to markets, drawing on the insights or interpretations from the experts we talk to? Is this every day is happening?
Yeah, it pretty much is, to be honest. It's the real soul of smart property investment. People come to us and they want to know essentially how the market is flowing, where's good, where's not good, and it's up to me and the team to just figure out really how that market is going and what the experts really are saying or not saying.
So what filter do you use? Because as a journalist, you have a responsibility to make sure that you're communicating information which is timely, factual, accurate, and of need to our listeners and our audiences. How do you work out what should be covered and doesn't get covered? Because I think a lot of people don't actually understand the process that we have to go, you get some left of field prediction from some person who we might just go, this person's just a chancer. We're not going to run that, and therefore we don't want that information going to the market. What mechanisms do you use to filter the content?
Well, it's a lot of talking to the experts and just gauging the current feel. Pretty much straight away, it's pretty easy to tell if you're coming across someone that's genuine and who's pretty knowledgeable, or you're just coming across some spruiker who's just trying to rather get their name or their business out in front rather than, actual genuine information.
I'm happy you used the S word there, which is the spruiker word. Spruiker word, James. Oh, you kicked off your career with us many, many, many years ago on smart property investment.
I did.
You know the property investment game, and you've seen a lot of spruikers in your time come through. So this goes down to our responsibility as journalists to make sure that we are communicating accurate information.
Yep.
And the duty of care, I guess, we have to ensure that the information that our readers or our audience have is information we know is as good as we possibly can be. So this spruiker thing, when you talk about market predictions, you got to be careful where you get your information from.
Yeah,
and I like to
100%.
think the way we approach it is good, but outside of us, there is a lot of people out there who might not have that same intent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for example, I think, and it goes to Sasha's point as well, if you get a press release through and it's from XYZ property partners or whatever, and, John Smith, who's the chief market expert at XYZ property, partners, says that this suburb here, is primed for growth and is probably going to grow by this much percent, and it turns out that they're selling properties in that area, then it's probably not, you know what I mean? You've got to vet your information. And that's why I think, and I know Sasha and myself use a lot of the same contacts in terms of economists from the banks and even some of the investment banks who do some pretty decent in-depth market analysis. They've got the data. It's not really in their interests to say that Karratha is going to boom and Adelaide's going to fall off a cliff. It's, you know what I mean? They're purely just reporting the facts. They're pretty objective. I mean, there's a rule in journalism where you sort of go to the highest possible source, whether that's the chief executive of a company or what have you. And it's the same when you're looking at things like market predictions. I think you go for the most renowned, the most credible source to get your information. And that's the same with data as well, using people like CoreLogic and those that provide market insights.
Yeah, and the important word you used there for me was the vet information. So we vet the information. We've got mechanisms for vetting. And you know what? We don't always get it right, but we get it right most of the time, right?
And also you provide a
99%
good
of the
mix
time.
as well.
You provide a good mix. You need to provide a mix, and that's our role as journos as well to do so. But you need to vet this information. And when you look at market predictions, as a property investor, you're always thinking about where next, which is cool. We cover it all the time. But just be careful where you get your information from. Me personally, I find these sort of market prediction type articles a bit tedious. They never really change that much.
No.
It's always, this is the next hotspot, or this is the next behaviours you're going to see, or this might be the next economic things that are going to happen, which are going to change and shape. It's always the same sort of stuff, right?
Yeah,
Right. And often you can just go, cut the noise out, don't worry about it, concentrate on what you're doing as a property investor.
100%.
And I think that's where the key is with this sort of stuff. So yes, be informed, yes, be educated, understand what's going on, but don't always chase this coverage either.
No.
It's good for us.
Yeah.
It makes our job easier to write this stuff. But
definitely.
I must, I like providing the debutant stuff. What do you most enjoy writing, Sasha? What sort of content?
Probably definitely the market predictions, because as you said, sometimes it can be a bit tedious, but then there can be other times where you find this one prediction that is left field, but it's not too out there. It's in the realm of, it's like right on the fringe of the realm of possibility, and it really gets you thinking.
What was your favourite interview of the year? Put you on the spot. James is already sitting there thinking. I'm going to ask him the same question.
Favorite interview of the year.
Favorite property interview of the year.
Favorite property interview. I think it might have to be our number one for market predictions, actually, with Doug Driscoll.
Okay. Doug Driscoll, star
Doug's
partner, CEO. I saw him in the paper the other day. Doug, I know you listen to this, say, g'day, how you going? Happy New Year. We live on the same street, so I might even see him tonight. But he was in, I think, the Daily Mail, which is the bastion of quality journalism.
Yeah.
Not saying anything about Doug, but anyway, they love this sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
They love this prediction type stuff. You read that one day and it's talking about everyone's becoming a property bazillionaire, and the next day everyone's sort of broke and the sky's falling in, and your mate Harry Dent is sort of in there.
My mate. Actually, he was one of my favourite interviews.
He was. Yeah. Did you actually interview him? Did you?
Yeah, I interviewed him for Investor Daily about 5 years ago. He came into the office. It was
So who's Harry Dent? People must know.
Harry Dent.
Yeah.
Crikey. Harry Dent has written a number of books. Basically, he's been predicting crashes in the economy and in the housing market since, I don't know, the GFC time, I guess. And very, very bearish on all economies, I suppose. But yeah, quite a character. I think he started off at Bain & Co. But I had a fascinating interview with him, where I remember we were talking about China. And he's like, China's going to go off a cliff. And then we were talking about Tesla's share price. This was 5 years ago. Yeah. And I was like, have you seen Tesla's share price? And he's like, Tesla, crazy. And so it was, he's an interesting guy. But he's basically, if people know Steve Keen, he's pretty much the American version of Steve Keen. I think they actually might have done some presentations together. But he's always touring. He comes to Australia about once a year. Yeah. And all the other bearish people get together and
sell tickets and tell you it's doom and gloom. And go back to my point around the Daily Mail. I saw Doug in there recently, and he was he's positive of the market. And Doug's always very positive. He's very astute in his ability to look at markets and predict where the hotspots might be or where particular market opportunities are. And he by and large gets it pretty right. He does it every single year. I had lunch with him a couple of months ago, and he said, these are my predictions. And we went back on the prediction he did the year prior, and he did pretty well. Yeah. So I can see why I enjoyed catching up with Doug. He's always good for a chat, and he's typically gets it right.
Louis Christopher's really good as well.
Louis Christopher's really good. Yeah, he's very data orientated.
Very
Louis.
much so.
He's SQM, which is a good research firm. He's just a pragmatic, straight down the line.
Yeah. Well, he reads the auction clearance results and sort of knows the trends in terms of when things dip below a certain amount, this might happen, and very much data focused.
Yeah, and it's good people coming in. I have a lot of discussions on the Smart Property Investment Show with people coming and talking about market predictions, because I know that's what listeners want, right? They're always going, all that theory is great, Phil. Just tell me what to do. Tell me where to go. And I go, well, it's not my job to tell you. I'm not a property investment expert. I'm just a guy who sits behind a microphone that talks to experts. But I've had some great people come in this year around predictions. Bernard Salt, who, one of the great demographers in Australia, property economists, I guess you'll call him as well. He's more of a demographer, so he looks at the way in which the world is changing, the way we live changes, and
How we're consuming avocados.
How we're consuming avocados, and how that translates into the dynamics of suburbs and livability and investment and infrastructure, and what that might do to property prices. So I had a really good chat with him. Who also? Tim Lawless from Core Logic, who you know. You probably chat with him a fair bit. Yeah. We had a good chat with him only recently about his predictions around the market and trying to break down this Sydney-Melbourne scenario which is going on right now. Who else have I had?
Those guys are generally pretty spot on, the Core Logic guys. I mean, they just get so much data, and they're just across the market so much, and they're reading it every day, so they can pick up on a lot. I think in terms of forecasts and what's going on, they'd probably be up there in terms of probably the most credible.
Yeah, Andrew Wilson,
Andrew Wilson.
Ex-Domain
Well, what's he
chief
doing now?
economist. He's got a new business, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but he's doing some really interesting stuff. We'll definitely get him back in because he's always really good for prediction. But these people, unlike your spruikers who we spoke about, who just sort of go, I'm building 100 apartments in suburb X, therefore that's a hotspot, right? You know, these guys are completely opposite from them. They're big mind, analytical thinkers who
economists generally.
Economists are, and property economists who can navigate complicated data sets and look for interconnectivity and linking of them to actually give you some insights that paints a picture to help shape the way you're going. So, you know, and when it comes to predictions, again, be careful who you listen to. These property economists, they're by and large right on the money, and I enjoy chatting with them. But you know, this is the world we work in property investment. Investors always want to know what's happening, so you know, we'll keep on it. Next year, Sasha, around market predictions, you're Mr. Market Predictions now. You're taking that mantle. You're going to be writing this stuff. You got this responsibility to make sure you get it right and only give our listeners and our readers the best information. But anyway, guys, I'm going to wind up. I'm going to do a bit of a shorter one today because the champagne is calling. I need to get home.
The champagne will be warm now.
No, don't worry. It's on ice,
on
and
ice. Okay.
I made sure I put plenty of ice in there to make it chilled. So you know, I do like New Year's Eve, but I'm actually taking it pretty easy this year. I normally host a pretty big party, but this year just me and the family, so
that's
I can actually relax for once and cook some nice food rather than just knocking out greasy sausages off my barbecue that no one wants to eat.
Well, I mean, they're all right.
They're okay. They're good sort of after 12, but when you're sort of starting off, you know.
But Bunnings do the best sausages.
Well, things have changed. Market predictions. You look at Bunnings now. You got to put your sausage on top of the onion rather than underneath it. This is the changing world. Did you not? You don't know about this?
I saw this thing on Facebook where someone put the sausage, the onions, like the sausage through the onion rings, and that was
safety. Some guys sued Bunnings because he slipped over on an onion. So
and now the whole policy changes.
Now you got to get your piece of white bread. You put your onions on it.
Is this legit?
Yeah, it's
legit.
legit.
Isn't like a meme.
No, it's not. And then you got to put your sausage on top to hold the onions on the bread.
This was like international news. This went across the world.
Well, this is important for property investors because I'm always looking for linking because we all spend our Saturdays at Bunnings.
After the auction, we go to Bunnings.
We go to Bunnings to buy taps and other crap.
And a sausage.
And a sausage. Anyway, I digress. Sasha, thanks so much. It's been a great 2018. Really appreciate all the content you've been putting out there. Go and read his stuff. There is literally hundreds and hundreds of articles from Sasha over 2018 and a whole mix of stuff around property predictions. We'll keep out of that again in 2019. But let us know what you want. How do you want these predictions coming through? Do you want us to cover more of it? Do you want to cover less of it? Do you want them to be more specific? Let us know. Editor, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. James, thanks, mate.
Cheers, Phil.
Your expanding portfolio of understanding around financial services is appreciated.
Oh, no worries. It's good fun.
And we'll get you back in next year.
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
early on. We could talk about some of these other, wrap up some of these other top episodes from 2018. But thank you, everyone. Thanks for tuning in this year. I've really enjoyed and appreciated you joining us on this journey as we explore property and property investment. I hope we have been of use. I hope we have been beneficial. I hope I haven't bored you to death with my nasally yawning. I'm trying to find some negative. Give me something negative about the way I talk, just to finish it off.
You pay my salary. I'm not going to do that.
There you go. Loyalty pays, particularly in property investment. But anyway, we'll be back again in 2019. Until then, Happy New Year. All the best over this festive period. Hope you get some time to relax and recharge and think about property moving forward into 2019. I think it's going to be an interesting year, and if you are set, if you are poised and prepared with all your ducks in a line and able to get finance, I reckon you might be able to get some good deals over this coming year. But we'll be back and we'll be talking about that all through 2019. Until then, Happy New Year. We'll see you then. Bye for now.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.